Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I'm Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, we're going to get to talk about something that we have not really had a chance to talk about in quite some time, and that is suppressors. Last time we were talking about that, we were actually talking about solvent traps, and we're going to do something that we haven't really done in a real long time, which we're actually going to talk about the ATF in favorable fashion today. It appears that the ATF has finally gotten their act together as it relates to ATF Form 4s, especially on suppressors. Things have sped way up. I have some personal examples, some people I have talked to, some FFLs I've talked to. Things are going really quick on Form 4s under certain circumstances. So today, let's get everybody educated and let's talk about how this might be the best time ever to buy a suppressor. You watch the news, you read the headlines, and you know it for yourself. Your community is less safe than it was just a few years ago. So you decided to purchase your first firearm. But like everything else in your life, you wanted to do this lawfully and responsibly. So you trained and trained and trained. You learned the laws of self-defense and all the tactics necessary to protect yourself and your family. To this day, you continue to train, and you now live by the motto that it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. You are prepared for anything, or so you thought. Who are you going to call when it all hits the fan? Who's going to defend you for defending them? Who's going to stand in your corner when you realize that proof beyond a reasonable doubt means one thing in a high school civics class and something altogether different in the real world? Introducing Right to Bear, self-defense coverage that protects you so that you can protect them. With an attorney-answered hotline, you will always get a confidential conversation with your state's attorney. There are no cap limits for either criminal or civil defense. All forms of self-defense are covered, so from a fist to a firearm, you are protected. And you will have some of the nation's most passionate 2A attorneys defending you. And the peace of mind that you will have knowing that Right to Bear is in your corner, well, that's priceless. Listen, I've been in this industry long enough to know two things with absolute certainty. Good lawyers aren't cheap, and cheap lawyers aren't good. So visit my friends today at protectwithbear.com, and if you use the promo code WGL, you will receive 10% off. Listen, you need to protect yourself so that you can protect them. Visit my good friends at protectwithbear.com. Okay, here's what we're talking about today. We are talking about the normal gut-wrenching process of getting a Form 4 suppressor approved by the ATF. Now, for those of you not familiar with NFA items, there are certain apex predator firearms where the federal government has said they are so dangerous that we need additional regulations. Those are firearms that are regulated under the National Firearms Act of 1934. They include short barrel rifles, short barrel shotguns, automatic weapons, other destructive devices, and yes, they also include suppressors. Now, you could accumulate a suppressor one of two legal ways. If you chose to manufacture one, and that would be very tricky based upon a lot of other stuff going on with the ATF, you would fill out a Form 1. If you're just going to buy a good suppressor from a reputable FFL, you would then submit a Form 4 for that. Now, there's a lot of things that keep people from getting involved in NFA firearms. The cost is one of them. The hassle, the extra background checks and all things. There's a lot of reasons that people do not get involved in NFA firearms. One of the big reasons is they don't want to wait 9 to 10, 11 months for their Form 4 to be approved. And until recently, that's exactly what was happening. So you walk into a good, reputable FFL today, you pick out a really nice suppressor, you do all the paperwork, you pay, that's great. You'll probably be able to receive it sometime spring of next year. That's the way it used to work. But I have now heard of multiple examples in which individuals this month alone have had their Form 4s approved in 48 hours or less. One person at Security Gun Club last week actually came in and purchased on a Tuesday and had their approval on Wednesday, and out the door they went with it with their approved Form 4. Why is this happening? Well, back in the middle of this month, the ATF actually updated its system and also kind of changed the way they were doing business. Now, rather than having the first in, first out, where you have all of these things just basically aging out like fine wine before somebody gets to them, the ATF now has implemented an entirely different system. And the order of operation is one of the big things that are speeding this up, because ATF is now processing the Form 4s only after they've received an approved NICS background check. So for those of you who don't know, the Form 4 goes to both the ATF and the FBI. They both have to do their checks. They both have to sign off on it before it can actually be approved. The new method is having all the Form 4s go directly to ATF with a simultaneous request from the FBI to run background checks. As soon as the FBI has clear background checks, they alert the ATF, who can then process the Form 4, and it has greatly expedited the process, so long as you are applying under a Form 4 as an individual, okay? And that's the important caveat here. This only goes for individuals who are accumulating a suppressor through a Form 4 as an individual. Furthermore, the ATF has now set up different lanes to process these applications. So a person who is applying as an individual for a single item on a Form 4 is going to go to one lane. But you may have multiple items that you are applying for. That's going to go to a different lane. And then, and this is important, the gun trust folks, you're going to all go to a different lane. Really important about gun trusts, okay? And this is important. If you want to do this very expedited system where people are getting it returned right away, you're not going to be able to actually accumulate the item as a gun trust. You will instead need to accumulate the item as an individual. Yes, you can always transfer the item later into the gun trust, but you will pay a second tax stamp. So whether that extra $200 offsets the time needed to get this thing, that's a decision that you have to make for yourself. Now, this is also important moving forward on gun trust, because this is what the ATF is saying. They're saying, listen, these boilerplated gun trusts that are coming from places like Silencer Shop and things like that, they're very easy to check. They check the language once. The language has never changed. They're all boilerplated. So as long as we got a grantor, a trustee, and a beneficiary, and everything is established correctly, that approval process should be relatively straightforward. Will it delay compared to an individual on a Form 4? Yes, it will. But this is important, and I want everyone to be aware of this. And the gun trust lawyers are going to completely hate me for saying this, but also according to the ATF, when you're having these custom trusts built by attorneys, and I am not knocking it, I make them myself for clients, and I think they are very good legal instruments to be using here. But those will have to be individually reviewed by somebody back at the ATF. And you know, when we're talking about a federal agency doing an individual paper review of a gun trust, you're going to be buying significant time. So if you are very interested in getting a suppressor and you have no desire to get it into a gun trust right now, or you can wait to put it in a gun trust and you just want to get your hands on one right now, there probably has never been a better time for you to sail through the background check on a Form 4 filing as an individual than right now. If you're going to be using gun trust, even boilerplated gun trust, you're probably going to be adding some extra time. And then certainly if you are using a customized personal gun trust, that is probably going to delay it even further. Listen, if you got any questions about NFA items, I encourage you to talk to one of your good local FFLs who will be able to walk you through the entire process. If you guys got any other questions about this or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, you should know how to get a hold of Washington Gun Law by now. If you don't, that's okay. That information is down there in the description box. And then finally, let's everyone remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching. Stay safe.